Hey, have you ever experienced something hard in your life? And my hope is, if you have, I mean, I'm sorry for that, but my hope is if you have, that you've learned from it. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit today, is I want to talk about what I learned about living from going through a kind of a traumatic experience of almost dying. Hi, I'm Brett, licensed psychotherapist and executive director for The Gathering. The Gathering is a nonprofit which is dedicated to helping you with your emotional growth, helping you with your emotional healing by creating emotional growth. And like I said today, I want to talk a little bit about life and the meaning of life and share a little bit about what I've learned about life from almost dying. Now, I'm sure just looking at me is a bit traumatic. It looks kind of ugly. But the good news is it's not as bad as it actually all looks. A lot of these bandages are basically just holding on electrodes. Because right now what we're doing is we're running an electroencephalograph, an EEG. And the EEG is basically designed to kind of watch my brain waves and to watch what my brain's doing. Because a couple weeks ago, my brain went through a hard restart and it basically turned off. And so docs want to kind of figure out why that happened and maybe hopefully prevent that from happening again. But for me, in terms of my experience of that hard restart, I found it to be extremely fascinating and I think even useful. And that's what I want to share today is some of the lessons that I've learned. See, as a psychotherapist, one of my favorite tools in helping people to grow is what's called discernment. And discernment is basically being able to separate you from all your body's functions, your thinking, your emotions, your actions and behaviors. Those things are not you. You, if you're really living life, you are watching and aware and noticing those things about yourself and maybe even creating changes in those different functions in your body. And so by going through this hard restart, having my brain actually turn off and power down, it's been fascinating because I can watch the systems slowly coming back on and it helps give me that sense of discernment and separation. And although for me, I find it really interesting and fascinating, that's not the point of this video in the sense of, I don't want you to have a seizure. And I don't feel like you even need to have a seizure to be able to improve the quality of your life. That's really not the lesson that I want to share about. The lesson I want to share about for you is how life has to be really lived to be enjoyed. And most of us, unfortunately, are not living our lives. Most of us are on autopilot. And I think the one thing that a seizure will do is it'll kind of make you aware of that, of how you're not living life and how we need to live life. And so, again, what I want to teach you is that lesson without having to go through this experience. Have you ever heard of ECT? ECT is electroconvulsive therapy. And basically what ECT does is it basically takes a patient and shocks them. And in shocking them, it puts their brain into a seizure. And what we notice when a patient comes out of an ECT treatment is that they often report that it feels like their brain is really rebooted, much like the analogy, the example we used with the computer. When they come out of the ECT, they feel, well, at first muddy and confused and loss of memory, but as their systems come back online, they feel clear, they feel better, they feel just kind of like the noise has kind of shut down. Again, much like a computer when it reboots. And I too have been noticing that in myself. I feel much better after the seizure than I did before. And because we're all looking for this magic answer and magic pill, we think, oh, well, then why are we all doing electrical convulsive therapy? Well, the reason is is because it's not a magic answer. Yeah, initially I definitely have felt clarity. I felt more focus. I felt like the noise of all my neural pathways quieted down for a time. And now, as I keep watching and observing and discerning my cognitive functioning, what I also have been noticing is that slowly the old neural pathways and the old patterns come back too. And the negative thinking and the emotions and the anxiety and all my bad habits, they start coming back online too. Because they didn't instantly go away. They just got shut off for a minute. Now, the hope is in ECT, and the hope is in my own life, that in shutting them off and in the interim of them rebooting, I can reprogram my brain. And that's really what I want to address with you, is helping you to reprogram your brain in a way that's going to make a significant difference in your life, and your thoughts, and your feelings, and in your actions. So for me, I think the real value of this experience wasn't the experience itself. And you don't need to have the same experience I did to really create the value. The value I found from the experience was the insight and the experience. And the experience I think you can recreate for yourself as well. So let me continue on with the story and help you kind of see where I'm going. And then I'm going to give you some lessons that you can practice, some experiences that you can have yourself to build these lessons within your own brain. After I had the seizure, my doc has put me through all kinds of the tests. And one of the tests that we're doing, as we've already talked about, is this EEG. And what was really interesting is as I was putting on the halters and all the electrodes and all the sensors to monitor brainwave activity, I started talking to the EEG tech. And she was just a really bright gal who's really hungry to learn. And we were talking about the brain and how the brain works. And she told me about a study that she had read that had changed her life. That's literally the words that she used. And in the study that she shared with me was, it was done with a bunch of people from a nursing facility. And in this nursing facility, they basically pushed and created opportunities, maybe that's a good way of saying it, for the residents every day to make decisions. Now, the decisions weren't big decisions. They were simple decisions. What to wear, what they wanted to eat, what they were going to do. And by pushing the residents to make daily decisions, what they found was that the residents, their cognitive functioning started to improve. But not only that, their mood started to improve. They started to feel better. And not only that, they started to function better. They became more and more independent. And then compare that group to groups that weren't pushed or encouraged to make daily decisions, you could see this comparative decline in those patients while these patients were continually improving. So this tech, this EEG tech, as we were putting on the sensors, was sharing about how she makes sure every day that she makes decisions. And she's always being what I think of as intentional about what she's doing. And in doing that, she's keeping her brain active. And what I would say is that she's keeping herself from living life in autopilot, and she's actually living her life by being intentional. There's a lot of other studies similar to that one that show the same kind of thing. There's studies that show if you take patients that are in residential care facilities and you give them daily experiences, new experiences, going to the market or going to the mall or just going to the park and just getting out and doing new activities stimulates the brain in the same way. If you teach these residents new information, expose them to new information, new learning, new technology, experiences, something that they can learn about, again, you see the same experiences, that their cognitive functions improve, but also their quality of life, their emotions improve, and also their physical health and their physical abilities improve. And again, why? Why is that all happening? Well, again, my theory is that what I've learned from this experience for myself is that a life lived, that when we're living life, it is so much better than we're on autopilot and we're just kind of functioning through life. And that's a tricky thing to do because our bodies and brains are really designed to be in autopilot. That's what they're designed to do. And that's their kind of their default. And for you to live life, you have to make that happen. It doesn't happen automatically. And the two things that I think we really need to in beginning this process is intention and attention. And that's what we're seeing in these studies, is that when patients are intentional and they're given choices and they're asked to make choices, they feel better. When patients are paying attention through new experiences, through new learning, their lives are better. And that makes total sense to me because that's what I've been experiencing. Having this seizure brought my brain back online, and I am much more intentional and paying much more attention to my own experience and my own life. And it really is bringing enrichment to my life. And that's what I want to suggest with you. And in fact, I want to, one, leave you with a resource on how you can learn more about that. And two, I want to give you an exercise that you can practice so you can bring your life online. Now, the resource can be found at The gatheringofgoodpeople.com. And the resource is the 5 steps to being mindful. Hopefully the resource is already there right now and you can see the link down below. But if the resource isn't up yet, because we're still logistically putting that up, there should be an email below and you can email me and I'll make sure that we get it to you. And again, the resource, the 5 stages to mindfulness start with the first 2 stages. And you can maybe even already guess what the first 2 stages of being mindful are. Being intentional and bringing attention. And that's where I want to start you in an exercise and get you to even start practicing today and this week. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to be intentional. And I want you to be intentional about living. And in this exercise today we're going to practice, I want you to be intentional about your breath. So get comfortable, get in a good place wherever you are, and I want you just to think about your breath, and I want you to choose. I want you to choose to breathe in, and I want you to choose to breathe out. And I want you just to simply, in your mind, say it out loud, say it in your thoughts, but say the words, I choose to breathe in, and I choose to breathe out. You're constantly breathing, but most of the time you're on autopilot. You're not choosing it. I want you to choose it. I want you to make the decision. Each breath in and each breath out. And notice what that's like to choose to breathe. Feel it. Not only cognitively in your thoughts, feel it in your emotions, and maybe even feel it in your body. Good. Now, as you're choosing to breathe in and choosing to breathe out, I want you to also notice that it's really easy to pay attention. Intention focuses attention. And that's the second part of being alive, being aware, being mindful. So as you choose to breathe in, I want you to add this piece. Breathe in, breathe out, and be aware. Be conscious. Notice what it feels like as you breathe in and as you breathe out. So I choose to breathe in and I choose to breathe out. And as you choose that, be aware of it. Be aware of the breath moving in and be aware of the breath moving out. Again, most of the time you're breathing, but most of the time you're not aware of your breath and what it feels like to breathe it in and to breathe it out. So be not only intentional, but pay attention to your breath. Now, as you've done that for the last few minutes, I want you to notice, do a body scan. Notice what you feel like. Notice what your thoughts are like. Are they quieted? Are they slowed? Maybe they're still scattery and distracted, but are they better? Notice what your emotions feel like. Do they feel a little bit calmer? The energy's kind of dropped a little bit? Again, maybe it's not perfect, but it's better. And even notice what your body feels like. More relaxed, hopefully looser, more comfortable. And just take a few minutes just to journal and note, what are you aware of? Pay attention to what it feels like to be intentional. And see if it feels like you're a little bit more alive. You're a little bit more you, experiencing life, living life, instead of just going through life. Now, that's also your homework assignment this week. I want you to practice. I want you to practice being intentional and paying attention. And you could do that with your breath, and you could do that with eating, and you could do that with driving, and you could do that with talking or walking. Go on a walk and notice being intentional about every time you lift your foot and every time you put it down. Being intentional about looking around. Being intentional about the process of going on a walk. And paying attention to what's around you. Paying attention to what you're feeling. Paying attention to what you're doing. And then notice what that's like. To be intentional, to live that walk, or to be intentional and allow yourself to be present while you drive, or talk, or eat, or breathe. Write down your experience, what it's like to live life off of autopilot and live life intentionally and with attention. And then share some of your comments with us. Share them down below and maybe even share them on the gathering. Thank you so much again for watching, and I want to encourage you, watch for or go to the gathering, and let's look at that workshop on the 5 steps to being mindful. Again, I'm Brett R. Williams, psychotherapist, and I look forward to seeing you soon at the gathering. Take care.